The Los Angeles Rams are back, and the Vikings are officially on fraud watch. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso, with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today, as I am every Friday, by Locked On NFL expert, the mastermind, Ross Jackson. On today's episode, it's a FanDuel Friday. I'm going to be giving out some of my best bets of the weekend. We're looking for a shootout in San Francisco. The Steelers are dangerous. But first, the Rams are back. And again, the Vikings crashing back down to earth. Do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen of the day and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Ross, the Rams got Puka Nucau and Cooper Kupp back, and they look back.
Meanwhile, the Minnesota Vikings look like the team we thought they were going to be all along, especially after the loss of offensive tackle Christian Darrisaw. Boy, that was a heck of a hit.
Yeah, huge loss, and our guy Luke Braun, the brain, breaks it down from SoFi Stadium.
Well, as Vikings players congratulate the Rams behind me, it's going to be 30-20. That's the final here from SoFi Stadium. Not a very good game from the Vikings at all. We're going to have a lot of talk about that call at the end. Horrible call. One of the worst I've ever seen. Don't get me wrong, but kind of rescues the Vikings from the other narratives that should dominate. They were horrible on defense. Ridiculous penalties. Way too many first downs given to the Rams for free. And that is horrible, horrible stuff. The Vikings have a lot to answer for on the mini-bye. We're going to have to come to Jesus and figure out how to play football if they don't want this to turn into the third 5-0 collapse in the team's history.
Well, Luke is 100% right. A lot of the conversation is going to be about that missed face mask. I just want to say I don't think that the Minnesota Vikings, who got 6 points in the second half and went backwards on a few drives, I don't have any faith in them going 98 yards to score a touchdown and getting a 2-point conversion there. But regardless, what Luke was saying is, this will mask some of the real issues we got to look at.
Yep.
This Vikings defense that's gotten so much pressure on quarterbacks got 0 sacks against this Rams offensive line that is in a state of disarray. Also, the Rams had allowed 150 yards per game on the ground, the third worst number in the NFL. And the Vikings were only able to run for 64 team rushing yards. I mean, the Vikings are collapsing fast here, and the Rams look like they're going the opposite way.
Yeah, and you're going to start to see Sam Darnold kind of look like his old self again if things keep going. You got injury on the offensive line, no run game, no defense to support him. So now you're just kind of relying on the raw talent of Sam Darnold. Well, 4 other teams have tried that in his very young career. That hasn't worked out. I'm afraid you're going to start to see that regression from him, especially depending upon what we discussed earlier, the loss of Christian Darrisaw and how long the left tackle is out. He has been an absolute manimal all season so far. And if he's out for any extended period, I have very little faith in this Minnesota Vikings team to be able to overcome that.
100%. And the person who replaced him is David Quessenberry, who I have covered personally. And look, Quessenberry is a great story. He's a cancer survivor. He's a hard-nosed player who's going to do the right things, but he just doesn't have anywhere near the talent of a Christian Darrisaw. And one of the things that allowed Sam Darnold to have some of this efficient play that he's had is being so protected by a Minnesota Vikings offensive line that maybe has some weak spots in the middle, but has 2 very good tackles in Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw. So that could be a major problem. And I do want to give some credit to my Thursday host. Ross, don't get jealous here, but the data queen, Michelle Majuk, has been saying for weeks now that the Vikings are overrated. She does not believe in them. We ranked the NFC North teams the rest of the year, and she had the Vikings 4th. I just got to give credit to the data queen. She's usually ahead of the curve, and she might have had this one spot on.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, I'll give us a little bit of credit too, Tyler. We talked about, of all the undefeated teams early on this season, which team was on fraud watch, and we both said the Minnesota Vikings as well.
Right.
I don't know that we necessarily expected it to look like this, but look, Luke mentioned it. This is not out of the ordinary for the Minnesota Vikings. They have blown these undefeated starts before in the past. And right now, in a very tough and hotly contested NFC North, there's very little margin for error for this team, but a lot of error going around.
Yeah, 100%. And not only the Vikings have a history of this, Sam Darnold. Does everyone forget when the Carolina Panthers came out to a blazing start? What were they, 4-0 a couple of years ago? And then all of a sudden it started to come back down to earth and crumble. Like, this absolutely has happened to Sam Darnold before. So I think all of us are seeing ghosts, the ghosts of Sam Darnold's early season. But I do want to give the Rams some credit here. Their backs were against the wall. Cooper Kupp trade conversations. Diana Rossini goes on Dan Le Batard and says they want a second-round pick. They'll eat salary to make sure they get the good pick. And now Sean McVay is after the game saying, we're really happy to have Cooper Kupp back. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. Like, the Rams got off the mat here with injuries all over the offensive line, getting their playmakers back. This was a vintage Sean McVay game. He just refuses to lose to his proteges. He just won't have it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, look, you saw the big time matchup there between Sean McVay's offense getting the best of Brian Flores' defense. What a matchup that was to watch in prime time. Two of the best minds on their side of the football. And Sean McVay tops it with, tops that defense with Cooper Kupp coming back from injury, with Puka Nakua making his return after injury, two rookies on the offensive line having to deal with all of those exotic blitz packages that Brian Flores uses. That was a fantastic Sean McVay scheme and a well-executed offense by Matthew Stafford, with the exception of one underthrow and one overthrow that ended up getting intercepted. It was just everything you needed. And how good is Puka Nakua, man? Like a 5th-round wide receiver. How good is this dude?
Absolutely. The Rams have really done a great job drafting in the last few years. They gave away all those high-end draft picks for their Super Bowl run. They won the Super Bowl. It all paid off for them. And the only way to get back as quick as possible after you do that is to really hit on all your picks. And you look, at Kobe Turner and Byron Young and now Puka Nakua. Like, they just, hit on so many draft picks. But I do also want to mention here, not only did the Rams keep themselves from going to 2-5 in their season being on the brink, but in that division, Seattle is 4-3 leading the division. Right. The Rams are, one game back from them now at 3-4. And I don't really believe in Seattle. Like, I don't think Seattle is some stone cold contender. So not only did the Rams, keep their season alive and keep themselves from trading away a lot of their talent, they have themselves a chance to still win the division. It's early in the season. But with that being said, another division that's hotly contested right now is the AFC North. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the more dangerous teams in the NFL. It's Locked On Podcast, Locked On NFL, your team every day. Do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Look, Prize Picks is daily fantasy sports made easy and made fun. That's why they have over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks makes daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. I love playing Prize Picks. Again, it's so simple. Like, you pick 2 to 6 players. You look at the Prize Picks projection. Justin Jefferson, 83.5 receiving yards. Patrick Mahomes, 267.5 passing yards. Tyreek Hill, 97.5 receiving yards. All you do is pick 2 to 6 players and say more or less. So make sure that you download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's the Prize Picks app. Download it today. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's Prize Picks. Run your game. Also want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by the pre-alcohol drink from our friends over at Z-Biotics. Pre-alcohol probiotic drink by Z-Biotics is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break down this byproduct. Getting very sciencey here. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and then you'll feel your best tomorrow. I personally have used the pre-alcohol drink from Z-Biotics, had a big day of golf on a Saturday, hit the prebiotic drink, pre-alcohol, and then on Sunday, I felt fantastic, ready to cover all the NFL action. Go to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use code LockedOnNFL at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember, head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL at checkout for 15% off. All right, Ross, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. Talked about that fantastic Thursday night football game and the implications for both teams, but we do call this a FanDuel Friday. Want to get into some of my best bets, and I got to tell you, the madman is on fire. I've missed about 2 out of my last 10 bets that I've given you guys on the show. So here's what I got cooking for this week. Number 1, the Pittsburgh Steelers take on the New York Giants. And it's a tale of 2 quarterbacks in New York and in Pittsburgh.
The Steelers fans are saying, well, wait a second. What about the situation? We just switched quarterbacks. Yeah. The Steelers have their switch, but I think there's a little bit of a different tone right now. Not that Russell Wilson should be declared, the redeemed quarterback or comeback player of the year yet or anything, but he had a solid, first week of action, 2 touchdown passes, a touchdown run, a QB sneak. The Steelers scoring 37 points at home against the Jets. Which was the number 7 scoring defense last week. And I think people saw, hey, this is why the Steelers are giving him a shot after Justin Fields had 10 touchdowns in 6 games with only 1 interception. People were really impressed by that. But Steelers and Mike Tomlin, saying, hey, we're going to give Russell a shot. And as I said, partly because he's getting the ball downfield. And to me, I think that could be the difference in this game.
I 100% think it's the difference in the game. Russell Wilson is going to be able to challenge down the field. He absolutely adds a new element to that Steelers offense, the way that he's playing. And that is why, Ross, Pittsburgh Steelers -6.5 against the Giants. I'm rolling with that all day. Less than a touchdown. And the Giants tried to put in Drew Lock last week. And it's funny because, Chris Carter had his old-timey gangster voice. Hey,
this is Edgar G. Robinson voice right there.
Right. I was loving that. But also during the crossover episode, which you guys should check out, Patricia Traina from Locked On Giants mentioned that while the Steelers got a bump from changing quarterbacks, Drew Lock isn't going to give you that same sort of bump compared to Daniel Jones. They're both very comparable guys in different ways. So I don't really care what the Giants do at quarterback. The Steelers are a much better football team, and I love Russell Wilson taking this team to 6-2, -6.5 for the Steelers.
Yeah, I like that a lot, Tyler, and I agree. Daniel Jones and Drew Lock are very comparable, as in they're both absolute disasters at the quarterback position. I cannot wait to see the New York Giants get a real quarterback in their building at some point. I'll give you my best bet on this one, and it's going to sound like it's countering your idea, Tyler, but it's not really, because I think that that Pittsburgh wins this game comfortably. But I'm actually going to say take the under on Russell Wilson passing yards, 199.5. The reason why I say that is because he got a lot of his passing yards last week off of passes in which, or dropbacks in which he had 2.5 or more seconds to throw. The one area where where New York's defense fares very well is in those situations. They've actually forced the 3rd lowest EPA in the NFL when quarterbacks get that much time. So expect instead a good run game from Pittsburgh. Expect Russell Wilson himself to utilize his legs when that snap clock runs long in the tooth, but he doesn't have anywhere to go with the football. And then, of course, a defense that can also get you some points if need be as well. I'm taking the under on those passing yards, but I still think that Pittsburgh wins this game comfortably, which means that they also probably have a late lead, and Russell Wilson ain't got to throw the ball very much late in this one.
Well, you know what? The data supports you, Ross. I'm going to go full Michelle Majuk data queen here. The Giants are the 8th worst rushing defense in the NFL, giving up 138 yards per game. So, ball, Ross. That's all it comes down to. Ball. But staying in the AFC North, we have the records aren't impeccable, but we have a big game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Cincinnati Bengals. And my guy Louie from Locked On Eagles and then the dynamic duo Jake and James from Locked On Bengals talked about that matchup.
It feels like they're back. There's a path. I mean, they've lost 4 games by a total of, 15 points, Jake? When you look at it and you look how they lost some of these games, you can easily see, they could be 4-3 or 5-2. At the same time, you're right, Louis. The who they beat over the past 2 weeks isn't going to inspire you either. And it's in reverse order, the Giants and then the Browns, both on the road. The Browns, a tough matchup for them defensively. And so I do think that they're a good football team, but they still have to go out and climb themselves all the way out of the hole to show that and to prove that. And that's what Sunday is about for me. I think that's the biggest thing going into this game is show everyone that as talented as this Eagles team is, now that you're returning home, they haven't won a game at home at Paycor. This year, I'm here at Paycor right now. They're 0-3. Win a home game, beat a really talented team that's won back-to-back games and is pretty hot coming in as well. On the right track, but it's a big test on Sunday.
Look, I think the Bengals are ready to roll. They always do this. With Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor, they always start slow and then they climb back in. And Ross, this is definitely anecdotal. I'm going the opposite of data on this one. I'm going straight vibes with this.
I love it.
The Bengals are 3-4 and the Eagles are 4-2. Do the Philadelphia Eagles strike you as a 5-2 football team? And do the Cincinnati Bengals strike you as a 3-5 team? No. It would make a lot more sense if the Bengals were 4-4 and the Eagles were 4-3. And sometimes when I'm picking games, I just think about what makes more sense to me for these teams. So with that in mind, the Bengals at home, -2.5. Again, I'm not giving up a touchdown in Pittsburgh. Love that at 6.5. Not giving up a full field goal here with the Bengals, -2.5. Love those bets. The Bengals get their first win at home of the season, and the Bengals get on the prowl.
I love that. Sometimes it's just Occam's razor, right? The simplest solution is the one that's correct, and the Bengals are the better feeling football team right now. I'll tell you where I'm going with this one. I like Saquon Barkley over 75.5 rushing yards. The Cincinnati Bengals right now, the 21st ranked rushing defense, and also the team number 9 in the NFL in terms of using the most light boxes. That is where Saquon Barkley eats all day. Right now, he has the second most rushing yards over expectation against light boxes in the NFL. So it's a good matchup for him. Ultimately, I think that the Bengals are the better team here, but I like Saquon Barkley's day up against that Cincinnati Bengals defense.
Yeah, it could be a bit of a high scoring one as well. You know what I mean? Like that's probably what we're looking at here. But I think the Bengals defense is ready to kind of improve a little bit. I still do like the Saquon Barkley over, but it's Jalen Hurts who I'm more worried about, who has not been playing his best football. But we got a classic NFL matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. And talking about going over in the points, expect a shootout in San Francisco. It's Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is a FanDuel Friday, so of course, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you could start the second quarter of the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So, if you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you pull up the FanDuel app, you can check the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same exact page where you place your bets. It's an all-encompassing hub of football information. And right now, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Giving out my best plays of the week here on a FanDuel Friday. I got a hammer bet coming for you guys still, and the best place to find it is America's #1 sportsbook. Go to FanDuel at FanDuel.com. All right, Ross, we're going to cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We've talked about that Thursday night football matchup. It was a fantastic game. Talked about some teams in the AFC North that I like some numbers on this weekend. But now we're going to look to one of the more classic matchups in NFL history. Again, the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. Before I do want to thank you again for making Locked On NFL your first listen each and every day, and remind you to check out the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL. Step into the barbershop with Tony Wiggins, one of the best that we have, one of my favorite guys to talk to, my AFC South division mate, Tony Wiggins, the barber himself in the barbershop, chopping up the best NFL topics as we head into week 8 in the NFL. Man, it goes by so fast. But I'm looking at this game between the Cowboys and the 49ers, and all that I could see is points. And my guy Brian Peacock from Locked On Niners, my guy Marcus Mosier from Locked On Cowboys, I think they're thinking the same.
Are we looking at the under then of the 45.5 points with the picture we've painted here? Okay.
No, because the thing is, the 49ers, even as banged up as they are on offense, I have a hard time not seeing them score 24, 27 points. And once you get into those kind of games, I do think there's some potential for the Cowboys to have a little bit of a backdoor cover. I think the over is going to hit pretty confidently.
Well, the Cowboys got to get more than 9. All right.
You would think they would this week. I mean, they kind of have to be better on offense than they were last week, right? They have to.
Well,
so I think the Cowboys defense is susceptible, and that's going to allow the 49ers, who have injuries, to say the least, on the offensive side of the ball. I think that's going to allow them to, even with the injuries, find a way to score some points. And honestly, I just trust Kyle Shanahan against Mike Zimmer's defense. I mean,
agreed.
If the Giants scored 15 against this defense, the 49ers, even banged up, can score more than that. And then the Cowboys had a bye last week. So I know that they, were terrible in their last performance against the Lions. But at the end of the day, I still think they've had time to come out and make something happen here. So the over-under on this game on FanDuel is 47.5 points. 47.5. I love that number. I'm going over on that number. And I'll just throw this in here as a little extra. Cowboys plus 4.5. I think this game could be 27-24, 30-27, somewhere in there. I like the Cowboys getting 4.5, and I like that over 47.5 as well.
Yeah, I like the over too, but I like it because I'm thinking of this game kind of being like 38-10 in favor of the San Francisco 49ers. I watched a former San Francisco 49er offensive mind, Clint Kubiak, go to Dallas and hang 44 on the heads of the Dallas Cowboys. I don't think a bye week is going to help them here. I don't like the Dallas Cowboys. I don't like what they're doing so far this season. I don't like what they look like. I don't like their owner. I don't like their head coach. None of it works for me. None of it works for me. I've been a long-time Dallas Cowboys hater coming into this season, Tyler, and I'm not changing now, all right? So I do like the over in this one, too. I also like the under on Dak Prescott touchdowns. FanDuel doesn't even have the line set right now. I like the under on it, whatever it is. If it's 1 or more, okay, fine, I'll take that. But 2 or more, 3 or more, I'm coming down on that one. One of the biggest reasons why is because one of the best places for you to score points is in the red zone. Dak Prescott has a 39.1% completion percentage, Tyler. Completion percentage in the red zone. I'm good on this. I'm not betting on Dak Prescott to be a home run hitter in this game.
Ross just went full Kendrick Lamar. I hate the way you eat. I hate the way you speak.
The way that you look.
Everything. Like, just absolutely killed him on that one. But I hear you. That's going to be something that we got to watch for. And I'll either take my victory lap on you or take my L with Gino on Sunday show when we recap all the action. But moving to my last game of the week, Ross, I try to stay away from the home cooking. I truly do. But, we're here to give people the best bets of the weekend. I can't deny it. The Detroit Lions, minus 11.5 right now at home against the Tennessee Titans. And I know what you're thinking, people. 11.5, that's a lot of points. Take it from someone who watches the Tennessee Titans mercilessly every single week. There is no way that the Lions are losing by less than 11.5 points. I would also tell you that if for some reason the Titans get any kind of lead early in this game like they did against Buffalo, immediately go hit the Detroit Lions money line or the Detroit Lions line. That is a fantastic live bet for the game. The Titans are the worst second half team in the NFL right now. Don't fact check that. It's not time for fact checking, but just trust me on that one. So I don't care what the line is, but here's what I will say, Ross. The Lions play the Green Bay Packers next week, and there is the possibility that the Lions come out a little bit sluggish. Maybe they aren't as focused as they need to be, thinking ahead to that Packers matchup, which could be the two best teams in the NFC facing off against each other. So I still think the Lions cover that 11.5, even though that's a lot of points. But I'm just saying, be on the lookout that the Titans go up early. Great time to smash the live money line.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. I love a good live bet. I tried to get a live bet done against Alabama and Vanderbilt. It did not go my way, but that was Alabama's fault. That's got nothing to do with the NFL. The NFL is a little bit more predictable in these situations. So I really like that look. The other one that I'm looking at right here, too, is Jared Goff. Right now, FanDuel has his over-under on passing yards set at 233.5 yards. He has done that he's been over that 3 games in a row against Seattle, against Dallas, and against Minnesota. I think he'll do it for a 4th game in a row. And an early lead would only help that, right? You're forcing that opposing quarterback to go out there and throw the football. Jared Goff has been excellent, especially in situations in which he is being able to utilize play action. Jahmyr Gibbs, this run game, they're going to be able to utilize the play action side of this game. I think that's going to benefit Jared Goff. I'll take the over on his passing yards on this
one. 100%. And I didn't look up the lines on these things, but people, just write these down. Keep it in your head, whatever you got to do. The Titans are so bad over the underneath and intermediate parts of the field and pass defense. Kenneth Murray has been one of the worst coverage linebackers in the NFL since he came into the league. The Titans just traded their best linebacker in Ernest Jones to the Seattle Seahawks. They're going to have Jack Gibbons in there, which Gibbons is like your classic hard-nosed linebacker. Terrible in space, terrible over the middle of the field. I think Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Sam Laporta are all going to have huge games in the short and intermediate areas of the field. So if you're somebody wanting to play daily fantasy, Prize Picks, great time to go on Prize Picks and hit the more on Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs receiving yards. I think that would be a great move as well. But with that
lots
being
of yards after catch opportunities there.
Exactly that. And that's how teams have really been hurting the Titans. But that's all our best bets on a FanDuel Friday. Again, kind of cooking right now, folks. So maybe write this down. But with that being said, I will be back for Monday's show to recap everything with Gino Camilleri. Make sure you guys tune into that. Make sure that you hit the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL with Tony Wiggins in the barbershop. For me, the madman, Tyler Rowland, and my esteemed co-host, the mastermind, Ross Jackson. That's going to do it for us today. Get subscribed. Stay subscribed. This was the Locked On NFL podcast. And as I tell you every episode, stay safe out there.